check. Good. So I'm Max Ceron. Max Ceron, CWB Association Welding podcast. Today we have a really cool guest, Welding podcast.
The show is about to begin.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the CWB Association podcast. My name is Max Ceron and I'm with you guys again on another fantastic show with an awesome guest. Today we have a guest coming in from Alberta. Her name is Joelle Milne. I hope I said that right. Hey Joelle, how's it going?
Going good. Yes, you did say it right. Very proud of you. Thank you.
You know, I practice names. I don't like saying names wrong. People say my name wrong all the time, and it doesn't like make me mad. It's just like, come on, try a little harder, you know.
One of those that are triggered.
Yeah, exactly. So, Joelle, this is actually super interesting on my end because, you know, I get recommended most of my guests, right? Like basically I started with one and then this like train of guests just started like happening. And some are businesses, some are private engineers, welders, whatever, kind of all over the spectrum. And then one of my previous guests, Bailey, was like, "Yo, you got to check out my homegirl, Joelle." And I was like, "Okay, sure." So I sent you an email and said, "Let's set this up." But man, like I don't know anything about you because you are like a secret weapon. You have like no Instagram or Facebook or you're just sliding under the radar like a
No.
secret spy.
It's a little weld ninja over here in Alberta. Just trying to make it, you know.
Yeah. So, Joelle, tell me first of all, how old are you and where do you live?
I am 29 years old. I'll be the old dirty 30 May 27th coming up here, so we're halfway. And I'm originally from a very small town named Didsbury, and I currently live about 15 minutes north of it in Olds. But I have kind of been a nomad for the last decade of my life, to be honest with you. I kind of started that little journey. I moved to New Zealand after high school, kind of just didn't know what I was doing, where I was going. So I sold everything, got a plane ticket, took a couple bags with me and went there. And then some unfortunate circumstances had to bring me home a year early. So ended up back here and kind of bounced around a little bit, didn't really know what I wanted to do, and ended up welding of all things. Last thing I ever thought that I was going to do. And then so I've kind of just moved around here and there chasing work and found some roots here in Olds now. So hopefully I'll stay here for a little bit. Me and my boyfriend just got a place in September, and so it's been good. It feels nice to have like a home and have some ground roots to come back to when I'm not on shift.
Yeah, it's that's super interesting, and it's funny because you're like, I somehow ended up in welding. It's like if you went to a school of grade 5 kids and you lined up all the grade 5 kids and said, "Hey kids, what do you want to be when you grow up?" I don't know if any kid puts up his arm and is like, "I want to be a welder." Like, I don't know if that's something that actually happens.
No, not even like at all. Actually, it's funny that you say that exact sentence because before I got into welding, I was actually doing my level 1 in early childhood education. So polar opposite end of the spectrum of welding or being a welder and everything that comes along with being a welder. So
Well, my wife is a ECE as well, and now she works for
yeah,
for like ministry with like kids. And man, let me tell you, her job is a million times harder than mine. I just got to work with steel
crazy.
and steel products. I can hammer steel into
Yeah,
shape. I cannot hammer children.
legally. Yeah. But yes, it's totally opposite. I tell people that and they look at me and they're like, kids, Joelle? And I'm like, yes, children. I know who let me around them, right? For
Oh,
sure.
you got a soft
But
spot
I
then.
ended up getting, yeah, I do. Oh man, like, and it comes out in welding too. Like, I'm the most sensitive person on site most days, I feel. And like, I got to check myself often and be like, you just got to relax a little bit. It's just metal, it's just steel. It will do what you want it to do if you just take a breath and relax.
Yeah, it's
All
it
welding, right?
it's the most beautiful of all materials in my books. You can do anything with
It
it.
really is anything with it. It's amazing. Yeah, it's cool
So you leave high
for
school,
sure.
you go on this trip to New Zealand, you go on your walkabout, you do your Joelle, soul searching. You get back to Canada, you start the EC program, and then all of a sudden, what happens? Like, what led you to welding?
Okay, so I'll give you a little bit of a backstory why I came home. So my mom actually ended up passing away while I was over there. So this was 2009. So I came back and had to deal with that turmoil coming back to. I had a very close family, and we kind of went our separate ways. And just a little bit personal here, I ended up moving back with my dad, and my brother had a baby right before I left at a super young age, and so I came back and I was actually nannying my nephew. His name is Cash. And so that kind of led me into getting into the child care part of it. And when I was in high school, I worked in daycares, and that was kind of my jam. I really like kids and just like the playfulness of it. And I love how honest children are. Like they're so brutally honest. And like that resonates with me deeply. Just like doing your authentic self all the time. And it's just easy to do that when you're around kids. So long story long, did that for a couple years, and then I actually kind of got into a little bit of equipment running. And so how I ended up in a welder spot, I was working for this company out of Olds, and I ended up having to get my wisdom teeth pulled out. So, and it did me in pretty good. I was off for a month. And so my boss just was like, yeah, like I got to fill your spot. Like I got to have someone in this piece of equipment. Right. And I was like, okay, I get that. But kind of shady. It was like right before Christmas time. And like anyone out here, I guess it's kind of anywhere, like finding job at that point, it's really like next to nothing. So, um, I was dating a welder time. He was working in a mod yard in Penhold, Alberta. And he's like, well, we need a Zoom boom operator here. Like, do you want to come do it? And I was like, oh, I've never ran one of those. I'll come give it a go. Sure. So went and did that. A couple months there. It was about, I think it was February. One of the pressure welders, his helper didn't show up one day. So my foreman was like, do you want to go give this a go? We just need help for a day. I was like, sure, shit, yeah, I'll give it a go. And I loved it. And I was naturally good at it. Like my first rod, I was like, oh my God, this is like crack. And then honestly, within like 2 weeks, I was indentured and I was on my way. And I've never done anything since. Like that was 2012. So yeah, we're 2020 now, almost 2021,
Yeah,
and
8 years.
I
Yeah.
haven't. It's been pretty hard to be honest with you. Like we kind of went into a recession right when I got my blue book, which is like our apprenticeship book,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been pretty fortunate for work, but I have sat for like up to 4 months, and like that gets pretty stressful. Anyone in our trade knows what that's like, and
Yeah.
so. But that's kind of just how I got there. It was like by fluke completely. But I'm really happy because I look at my life now and what welding has allowed me to do. It's allowed me to be like independent. I've never had to rely on anybody financially, anything like that. And like that's always been very important to me because I grew up in a family like we were always well off. Like we didn't ever struggle. Like my parents were amazing, came from a really good household, but like we were instilled in us to work hard and work for everything that you have because there's no silver spoon here to save you. And I mean, my dad has been one of my biggest supporters. Like any weld test that I do, I call him. I'm like, I'm going for a pipe testing. He's like, you got this, like no doubt ever. And he's just been amazing. My brother, he's a heavy duty mechanic, same thing. So a bunch of tradies in my family. One of the smartest guys I know, worked with him a couple times, and he's been a big inspiration to me too. And so just good support system around it as well,
No,
which helps in the industry.
oh, for sure, for sure. It's good to have people in your corner. It can be a tough industry, and I don't care how tough you are. There
Yeah,
was days for me where I'd like have to like pull over on the side of the road and like cry before going to work because it was just
yeah,
like and all the guys will act tough, but you know what? They're crying too, and
absolutely.
it just is what it is. But you just gotta keep the long term goal in your sights and power through because it's not hard for anybody, or I mean, it's not easy for anybody. It's hard for everybody. Everyone's
Everybody, yeah.
everyone's got to struggle their own way, right? So one way or another. And like I mean, in your story's awesome. The only real mistake you made was dating a welder, but that turned out good for you, which is very rare. So good job.
And now I'm dating a pipe fitter, so I don't know which is worse.
Oh, geez, a pipe fitter. Well, tell him that he's good at running in circles.
Yeah, he's actually gone soft and he's a superintendent now, so I don't really
Hey,
worry
that's a
about
good thing, man.
that.
I went soft about 6 or 7 years ago. I turned soft and got into the office side of it, and I don't miss it. Like, I
Yeah,
mean, I got my shop. I build stuff in my shop for sure. I'll never stop picking up, welding machines because I love it. It's a passion.
well,
But
they're always loved, right?
but it's good to move up. Like, I mean, some people are built for it, right?
Yeah, for sure. I'm proud of him. He's done really well.
And and also like working with kids and the authenticity of kids. That's so true too, because in the welding industry, some people are brutally honest for no reason other than to just be mean, and
Yeah.
it's good to deal with that and learn to deal with that, right?
And I think you gotta run into those people in welding sometimes that check your ego and humble you a little bit. Cause sometimes it's easy to get away on yourself if you're laying down really slick beads and like, I'm hot shit, can't touch this, whatever. And then you hit someone and it's like, well, maybe you're not as good as you think you are. Maybe you should try this. And then a weld humbles you and you're like, thank you for showing up in my path because I needed that check.
100%. Like we all carry all welders, and I was just talking about this with a friend the other day who's a welder, and I was like, we all kind of carry these welds or these jobs in our backpack. And when we talk to other welders, we're like, well, I did this one time, and we did this, and
Yeah.
it shouldn't come from a place of ego. It should be come from a place of sharing because it's cool and it's good to hear cool stories, but you don't have to be a jerk about it.
Yeah, put the ego away for a little bit and able to hear other people's stories too. Like I love talking to welders and the jobs I've been on, like some of the stuff they get to do with like the exotic metals, and it's just like I don't even know anything. It makes me feel like I know nothing sometimes.
So you went
You
through the program in Alberta. Did you finish your red seal? You got your red seal, or are you still in the process of that? Like, I mean, you've been welding a
I
long
know
time.
I'm a journeyman, yeah. So we do it a little bit differently from out there, I think. Like I know to bring Bailey up as an example, like she does hers all in like a group, like one big group. I think like 8 months or something. She said. Whereas ours, you have the option, but it's like 3 8-week sessions, and then you have to do your working man hours in between. So like first, second, and third year, it's called.
Yeah, we
And
have the
then
same
if you
thing
want
in
to,
Saskatchewan, but we have both. You
what do
can,
you do? Yeah.
yeah, you can do the year of school if you want, or you can do like your 3 levels of apprenticeship, which I think are seven,
Right.
7, and 8.
Yeah. I always wonder why it's just not like uniform all across Canada since we have like CWB kind of thing. How
Mm-hmm.
it's like not all the same, but I mean, it's
Well,
whatever.
I could really get into that. I'm a part of the harmonization committees of Canada. I could actually like explain that to you, but I don't know if too many people in Alberta would like to hear the answer because they're kind of the ones that stopped it from happening. So,
Of course, why does that not surprise me?
as you know, when this podcast comes out, I'm gonna get like 400 calls being like, "What'd you say?" Like,
Yeah, that's private information. Sorry, can't
yeah, but
disclose that.
whatever. It is what it is. Like, I mean, like you said, check your ego, right? And check your ego at the bottom, but also check your ego at the top.
For
Like
sure.
it's got to happen everywhere.
Absolutely, yeah, it's good. Every welder needs it. We got this god complex about us, I think, sometimes.
Well, and we're allowed it sometimes. Like if we're talking to carpenters, 100%.
Or scaffolders.
Yeah, well, I don't even know what to say about that.
That's okay. I
My
get that.
my brother's a scaffolder, so like I mean that's a family fight
For
now.
I won't open that can.
Yeah, that's all right. They get paid all right.
They do. They do well. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Uh, all right. So you get back, you go through loss, you go through recovery, you go through training, you fall into this thing where you love it, which makes it fun to work at, right? And then you get out into the workforce. Like how tough was that? What obstacles did you encounter? You know what I mean? Like I mean, everyone has their own issues. Like for me, I'm a brown guy, and when I got into the welding industries in Saskatchewan, which is, not a lot of people of color, I struggled a lot with racism. But
Right.
you're a woman, and I've seen how people treat women in the industry. Did you feel like you had a lot of that crappy treatment, or what was your journey like there?
Yeah, it's kind of been a little bit of a roller coaster on that aspect. And I mean, like you saying that you've dealt with racism, like we both have our own struggles, right? Like, and it's almost I can sympathize with you on that because even though it's not the same struggle, it's still being displaced from a trade where you feel like sometimes you walk on site and you don't feel welcome, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like even now as like a journeyman V pressure welder, I'm assumed I'm like a laborer or a helper, and people ask me, "Where's your welder?" And I'm like, "I'm right here." Like, who else are you looking for, kind of thing. And in the shops, I feel when I did like my shop stint, I've been in the field for like the last 3 years, but like when I was in shops, I remember having conversations with the boy welders and get on the pay subject, and they're getting $4 more than me rolling pipe. And I'm like, and they're getting repairs, and I'm not getting repairs, and I'm going to talk to my foreman, and I'm a little bit slower, and blah blah blah. But like, there's all these factors that come into it, but it's like still, I'm producing, and I'm doing the same work. Why are we not on the same pay scale, kind of thing, right? So like wage gaps have been like an issue for me, and that's something that really triggers me, because like females, we're very meticulous I feel like female welders, we have a little bit more
Finesse.
what's the word, finesse with it. Yes, finesse, patience, we care a little bit more. And I don't want to take away from boys, because I know some amazing welders that are boys that are just floor me with their quality and their standards. But for the most part, in my experience, females are a little bit more finesse, as you say. So
And
wage
I
gaps.
agree,
And
100%. Like
yeah,
as an instructor for the last 7 years, I've seen that. I totally know where you are coming from. An attention to detail, right? That sometimes is a little bit more next level.
yes. And I know it's also hindered me at some points, because like I do take an extra 10 minutes cleaning a weld or whatever it is. And like my foreman comes along and they're like, "Hey, like it's good enough." And I'm like, "But it's not. Like this is my quality. Like if the wrong person walks by and sees this on the ground and they're like, well, why does it look like this when I could have taken an extra 10 minutes?" You never know who's going to look at it, right? So I always try to make sure that when I send something out, it's like I know it's the absolute best possible product that I could possibly send our QC team.
Yeah, and that's an awesome way to look at work, right? I always tell people, like, I'm a car guy. I love cars and expensive cars, sports cars, and it's like if I went to go buy a car and I'm gonna spend like 70 grand and it's got like spatter on the
Yeah,
side, or it's got like a big scratch in the paint, there's no way I would be okay with that. And if
exactly.
you look at welding, we're not selling cheap products. Welders are well paid, the products are expensive, steel's expensive. So if you're a customer and you're buying something from a welding shop, you're probably paying pretty good money for it. And I would hope you expect a solid, clean project, right?
Every single time. Yeah. Even if it takes an extra 10 minutes, like I'm a firm believer in that. Anytime I've ever had an apprentice work under me, I'm like, take your time. The plant is going to get billed regardless.
Yeah.
Like this is your job on the line. People are going to come around and look at your stuff. Like always take pride in your work and take an extra 5 minutes. Like I'm never going to give you shit if you're taking an extra 10 minutes to file or to grind, spatter down, or to whatever. Cause like I'm also putting my trust in you, because this is our product, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm taking you under my wing. I'm teaching you for a reason. And I'm sure, as you understand, you probably had helpers in your day. You don't teach people what you don't want to teach. Like if you take an apprentice under your wing, like you're like my little precious, right? Like
Yeah,
I'm
oh
gonna
yeah.
teach you
Like I
all
always
I know.
called
I'm
them my
gonna
little
morph you
chickies.
into right? Yeah.
come
My
under
minions.
come under my wing, my little chickie, and they hate it at first, but then
I'll
they
teach you.
they
I'll
get
teach
they
you.
get used to it. Yeah. All right, you
Next
know
thing
what?
you know,
We're
you're
at
getting
a
called
we're at
dad
a
and mom.
perfect spot right now to take a break. We've already almost hit 20 minutes, man.
Awesome.
We're flying here. So let's take a break. Get our sponsors in. They're really important for the show. So we'll be back after the commercials. So stay tuned to Joelle Milne here on the CWB Association podcast.
The CWB Group is Canada's national welding certification organization. We're pleased to offer welder testing at our state-of-the-art facility in Nisku. We provide welders the opportunity to practice for and take a CSA W47.1 welder qualification test. Book your welder qualification test with Canada's welding experts. Give us a call today at 1-800-844-6790 or visit us online at cwbgroup.org to book your training or testing slot. The CWB Group. We are welding.
The CWB Association membership is new, improved, and focused on you. The CWB Association is offering a free membership with a full suite of benefits to anyone interested in joining an association that is passionate about welding. Build your career, stay informed, and support the Canadian welding industry. Become a member today. Register at cwbassociation.org.
All right, and we're back on the CWB Association podcast. I'm Max Ceron. Thanks for joining us. Today's special guest is Joelle Milne, coming to us from Old Alberta, I believe you said.
Olds, Alberta,
Yeah.
one and only.
And we're going through the process of, well, what we were just talking about is the differences that we might see between sexes, races at work, and the issues that might come up with it. Now, we talked about pay. That's a thing, 100%. And I've experienced that myself until I hit a certain point. And this is something that I learned through my journey of being like a brown guy who speaks another language on the job site, is that for a long time I was just like the laborer, because it's like, oh yeah, you're just like another like foreign temporary worker or something. It's like, no man, like I'm literally the most qualified welder here. Like, what are you talking about? And it
Yeah.
gets to the point where I realized that, you know what, the only way to change this is to move up. And we talked about earlier, like I got to a
Yeah.
point where I wanted to move into management, because not so much that I wanted to sit behind a desk. Like honestly, I loved being on the floor. That's fine, but I wanted to make a difference, and I can't make a difference on the floor, but
Yeah.
I can make a difference as a business owner, and I can make a difference as a manager, or a boss. Then I can actually make those changes, and that's what I want so bad to happen with women. I am trying to coach women in my life through my work and my volunteer work and the colleges and everything, to get women into welding, but not just to be welders, to get women into welding and climb that damn ladder.
Absolutely. Yes. I love that for sure. I feel like, to be honest with you, I've never had a woman that's a woman. There's something wrong with that. It's 2020, right?
Absolutely.
I've actually,
I
I've
literally
never,
made that announcement the other day at this conference. It's like,
yeah,
yeah, we're working on diversity. I'm like, really? You're working on diversity?
really.
Like, how many women bosses have you had? You know, it's 50% women in the world, and I've never had a woman welding supervisor in 27 years,
Never, ever,
ever, ever.
ever. I've never even seen one. I think it's a unicorn. I don't even know if they exist, to be honest with you.
Well, I don't know what your plan is, but I hope that you go there. And, like, well, let's talk
They
about that
go,
now. What is your plan? You're a B pressure red seal welder. You're enjoying your job. You're liking where you are. You just got a pad with your new boyfriend, or I don't know if he's new, but your boyfriend. And are you thinking about climbing a ladder? Are you looking up, or are you just maintaining?
I am. So currently, I'll be completely honest with you. I think we're all kind of maintaining during COVID,
Mm-hmm.
but looking towards the future, hopefully there's a little bit of glimpse of hope here pretty quick. I would really like to get my level 1 QC and maybe go a little soft myself and get into the office. Because I don't picture myself laying in a ditch upside down on my head welding when I'm 40 years old. That just does not appeal to me in any aspect. I run into old welders that are like 60 years old and they're just bitter. They just hate everything. Like, can't even have a conversation with them. And I don't want to turn into that person. I don't want to get to the point where I'm at work and I don't want to weld. Like, I get stoked going to work every day. Like, I love burning rod. I love fitting. I love everything that comes along with it, the environment. But I definitely see myself within the next 5 years. I'd like to have my level 1 working on my level 2, and then just like find myself in a seat where I get to critique other people for the rest of my life.
No, and
Possibly.
that's awesome.
I'm not sure.
My career path was different. A lot of people I hear are always like, I want to be an inspector. That seems like a really common thing that I hear a lot of people say, is they want to get into the inspection game. You know what? I never wanted to be a weld narc.
Yeah.
Like, I never wanted to narc on other welders.
No. I feel like I feel like it'd be good for my personality because like I like welding for the point that I don't have to be around anybody really.
Mm-hmm.
And like if I don't want to talk to you, I can put my lid and start welding. Or like if you're talking too much when you're in my little fab tent, I can start grinding. You can get the point to leave, right? Like so I'm an introvert at heart and I really like my solitude. And I could go for weeks without talking to anybody and be like completely just so content. So I think the inspecting part of it, you still get to do your thing. You get to have a little bit of conversation with people. But I also think that our trade needs more inspectors that have a welding background
100%.
because the last couple jobs I've been on, people from an admin background are coming to tell me that I'm doing my job wrong. I'm like, okay, Carol, would you like to tell me what I can do better or how to do it? Because a lot of the time they don't have a clue. And I know it's a very sensitive subject for a lot of welders in Alberta, just um, the whole inspecting and them the credentials that you need to have to get into it. Like it's kind of a joke to me, to be honest with you. Like I think you should have at least a trade or a trade background of some sort, not just come off the street and get a signature and say that you can come and look at people's welds and tell them what they're doing wrong.
Yeah, well, really,
So
at the
that's
end,
kind of
yeah,
where I
at the
would
end, at the end of the day, the CWB inspection course is a 2-week course that anyone can sign up for, right? And
exactly
that
all you
is
need is
that's right, and that's tricky. That's tricky from the industry point because A, you don't want to turn people away from taking a course, but B, how much do you know they're actually prepared to go out there and not just and let me tell you, I've taken the inspection course. I'm not an inspector. I never followed through with any of it because I don't want to be an inspector. But I did take the course because I thought the course was awesome. You learn lots about metallurgy and theory and stuff like that. But without the practical point, like without, like you said, without getting out there and burning some rod, do you really know?
what's happening
Yeah,
or why it looks like
yeah.
that
Like do you
or
really
why I had
understand?
to do that.
Yeah,
And it's
exactly.
yeah, I know it looks like crap, but did you see me how I had to weld it? Like, can we please have some leniency here? I couldn't see. I'm sorry. I was just going by feel.
Yeah. You notice the 3 mirrors I have laid out around this pipe? Maybe that's why it looks like grapes on the back.
Exactly. I thought it looked pretty good from here.
All right.
Stand back 10 feet. It'll look better, I promise.
So you're thinking about getting into the inspection game. That's cool, and there's always lots of room for inspectors. It's a cutthroat gig. I'll tell you this right now. If you're looking to get into inspection,
It
make
is.
make some friends, because you're gonna probably have to go work for an inspection company, like a larger one, just to get your foot in the door. The private
Mhm.
inspectors that are out there, they're people that people know, so they're usually not just walk off the street people. They're like established welders, so it's pretty cutthroat. You're gonna have to prove yourself, right?
Absolutely. I'll game for that. Not my first rodeo.
Yeah, and that's awesome. I find that that's a good thing. And there's always room at CWB for inspectors too. They're always looking for CSRs. Like I don't know if you check out the hiring practices of the Canadian Welding Bureau, but they're looking for CSRs all the time, and that's a good gig to get in, and that gets your foot in the door too for a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Little cushiony. I think like where I would really like to end up is just to have a little stability in my life, right? Like I love being a recluse and like kind of just flying by the seat of my pants at this point in my life and gotten pretty good with money management in my old age here. And like I don't stress too much in between jobs anymore. And I like having my time off. I like having my 2-in-1 shift where I can do what I want. And but I wouldn't mind eventually just one day maybe having a little bit of routine and some normalcy in my life, but I'm not there yet. And I mean, day by day, right? Especially in this industry and
Hmm.
for welders in general.
So what kind of stuff do you work on right now? Like what's your day to day right now? What are you working on? What do you build? What do you weld?
So I'm on time off right now. I got my glorious pink slip about a week ago. I was working up in Pink Mountain, which is northern BC. I was at a site about 4 hours north of Fort St. John, just in the bush, doing our thing, building a refurge plant. And I was there from August, and I was actually just welding for the electrician, so it was pretty gravy. I was really enjoying it. There was no stress. Nothing was pre-engineered for them. It was wild. I've never seen so much welding for electricians in my life, but it was good. Built a lot of just tray brackets and welded a lot of struts. So but it was good. There was no stress. I wasn't worried about extra. I wasn't worried about losing job. Like I just went to work, did what I was told, went back to camp, and just it was perfect. It was good. It was a nice change.
So are you
And
going
in the new
through?
year, I got a couple.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry,
So I said sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
what were you saying? Oh, I was just saying in the new year, I got a couple things on the go, but nothing for sure yet. But I'm good. I'm just relaxing, enjoying some time. Me and my boy hadn't really had any time together this past 6 months because he was on a different shift than I, and so we just been at home enjoying each other's company and spending some time with my dad and my family, and yeah.
Now, are you working through a hall, through a union, or are you like how are you getting these jobs?
Not union. No, never worked union in my life. It's pretty much all been word of mouth and getting my name out there just as a welder in general. Because as it is anywhere, it's pretty cutthroat. But Alberta, I don't know. It's every year it seems to be getting less and less work for us welders. Seems to be a lot of work in Saskatchewan actually, and a lot of work in BC going on. It's kind of spread to either side of our province. So like I said, yeah, I was just up in BC. And then before that, I was stuck in northern Alberta, kind of away from everybody as well. So the central hub of Alberta, there's not really a whole lot going on for
Yeah,
welding work anyway.
that's something that I've noticed too. So BC has gotten into the resource game. So like they're pulling a lot of resources, or
Mhm.
the LNG and and their
Yes.
projects that they have going out there. So you got C-SPAN, who I had as a guest a few months ago, and they got lots of shipbuilding, lots of waterway stuff going on. So there's lots of work out in BC. And here in Saskatchewan, we've gotten into the
Right.
manufacturing game. So Saskatchewan's become like one of the leading manufacturing provinces in the country, and we're pushing like in Saskatchewan to be a manufacturing leader for the whole North America. We got so much land, and
That's
power's
wicked.
right, and power's
Yeah.
cheap, and rent is cheap here, so it's perfect for huge companies to come here and drop a 300,000 square foot plant in Saskatchewan, and it works out really well. So that's been hiring up a lot of welders. Now the problem is that the Alberta welders came in off a bubble, right? Alberta welders have a tendency to they got used to making a lot of money, and the work out in BC pays pretty good, but it's usually fairly short term, 4 week stints, 8 week stints, new builds, stuff like that. And then the work in Saskatchewan is super steady full time, but you're looking at only maybe 28, $30 an hour, which is, a big drop for a lot of welders.
Well, I'm like third year, second year right there.
Exactly, exactly. But
Coming,
but then when you're out of work and you got a full time job with full benefits
it's
and full pension, what are you gonna do? You know?
exactly. I know. I feel like that's the struggle. And like I had this conversation at work a couple weeks ago, and one of the BC welders just ever welders in general have been kind of just taking, like little pay cuts here, little pay cuts there. And it's like when do we kind of stop and just like kind of stand up and be like, hey, like these are my credentials. I'm not going to take $28 an hour, or you're going to get $28 worth of quality, right? Like
Hmm.
pick your poison here.
It's a tough
So
job.
that's
Yeah.
hard. The wages, inflation, nothing's going down but our wages, right?
Yeah,
Cost of living's just skyrocketing. It's holding
well,
on.
I tend to just move around. I tend to like stay with a company until I feel like I'm done, and then I move on to the next place, and then like, I stay there till I feel like I'm done. I try not to leave anywhere on a bad note, but
Yes.
wages tend to go up when you bounce. So I've been pretty lucky that way. Like I always tell people, if you're unhappy with your wage, go somewhere else. Like I mean, that's because there are people like I'll never say that a job is not that is going to squeeze out good welders. I've worked in factories where I've seen guys that have been there 30 years and they weld in production, and they're awesome welders. They're super good at their job. They lay down sick beads 10 hours a day every day of their life, and they're only getting $28 an hour. And I look at that and I'm be like, how can
Right.
you do that? Like, why don't you go out and make more money? But they have no desire.
Yeah.
Their job is easy. They go home clean. They have lots of time with their family. And you know what? We just get greedy because, man, $30 an hour is more than like 90% of the country. So it's a tough draw,
It's
right?
such good money. I know. I laugh at that. Like I have to again checking your ego. Like you gotta just really take a step back and realize we do get paid very well, even if we think we're not.
Yeah,
Like alongside the rest of the world, like you just said, right?
for sure.
And I mean, like we get the overtime and usually get the overtime and everything else, blah, blah, blah. But I also find like you just get comfortable a little bit. Sometimes you get
Mm-hmm.
very comfortable in your settings. Like I've been in a shop where exactly the same thing. I was an apprentice at the time, but like it was a very crappy wage, but I was home every night and I hadn't really ever experienced that. And I was like, I can make this sacrifice for what I'm gaining from it. Like I got to go to my nephew's birthday, or I got to go to my dad's birthday, or like just go to a ball tournament that I couldn't make for the last 2 summers or whatever, right? Like
Exactly. Yeah.
so again, pick your poison. So what do you want to, who do you want to be? What do you want your life to be made up of? Do you want
Yeah.
it to be money, or do you want it to be memories, kind of thing? Or find the balance.
When I got young students coming up, they always ask me like what their career path should be because they don't know. And I honestly tell them to try it all. You know, try it all. Figure out what you like. I did
Yeah.
the road work for a while. I did site work for years, and then I got into the shops, and then I got into fab, and you know, and then I rolled around until I figured out what I liked, and also figured out where I was comfortable with my wages. Like I had years
Yeah.
where I was making over 200K a year. Like that's insane. But
Mhm.
I don't even
I
remember.
live-
Yeah, like I had no life. Like I don't remember anything
yeah.
about that time. I was literally working like 18,
Yeah.
19 hours a day, like sleeping in some crappy cot in the middle of nowhere. Like, do I miss that? Not
Right? Yeah.
even a little bit. Like,
No. Was it worth it? Exactly. Are you willing to sacrifice your soul for the money?
yeah, and like, and
Yeah.
where's the money now? Where did that money go? Pfft, it's gone. Like,
Yep. I feel that on a spiritual level.
yeah, yeah, we
So
all
it's
we
too
all
good.
feel that. That's like the welder's plight. Oh, you make good money. Yeah, that's why. Yeah, don't even ask where it goes. I have no idea.
Don't, yeah. She gone.
All right,
That's
so
too
we're
good.
coming up at the end of the show here, Joelle. This was a ton of fun. Um, what
No,
would you,
it was good.
yeah,
I enjoyed it.
what would you like to say to the audience that's listening to this? And we got a lot of female welders that listen, a lot of young welders coming up from all over the world. What would you say to them about maybe the scene in Alberta or or the life you had coming up as some advice?
Some words of wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I honestly feel like I would say to the young females listening, they're gonna have some thick skin, but I mean, you can do whatever you want. You can be the best welder on that site if you really put your mind to it, and heart, head over heart. Sometimes you gotta learn to shut your emotions off and just gotta weld. Just gotta do the thing, you know. And I would say be reckless in your pursuit of happiness when it comes to welding. And when it becomes not a form of happiness anymore, then like you just said, you got to kind of bounce around and find what fits for you, especially if you're just starting out as a welder. Do the shop thing, do the field thing, work under some B pressures, work as an apprentice by yourself in a shop. Just try to cover all your bases, and because there's a lot of avenues that you can go with welding.
Mm-hmm.
There's not just one straight path, there's millions, literally.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, welding can apply to a lot of different personalities. So I think that's a beauty of it too. Like it takes in a lot of different people from a lot of walks of life. And some of my best friends I've met through this trade, like Bailey. And yeah, I would just say reckless in your pursuit of happiness when it comes to welding, and don't take no shit.
Are you gonna give Bailey a shout out here?
I love you, Bailey. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Oh, really? Do you guys actually see each other?
Yeah, we do. We only see each other 2 times a year, but she's my boo. She's everything. She's great. And I got to say thank you for opening this door for us to be able to have this meeting, because without her, we would not be doing this. So that's pretty rad.
Yeah,
And
that is
to
rad.
my dad, love you, man. Thanks for everything.
Awesome. And someday when this COVID passes
Merci
and
beaucoup.
and we all have our vaccinations and we can hang out again, we're gonna all have to have like a huge podcast party where all my guests get together and we all get have a good time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'll bring the rod.
All right. Yeah, we'll have a weld off.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
Put our money where our mouth is, right?
Exactly. Exactly. All right, Joelle. Well, thank you very much for being on the show. To all the listeners, thanks for listening in. Please share, download, and spread the word of the CWB Association podcast. Hit us up on Instagram. You can go through the CWB group. You can email me or send me a message. I'm AskMax75 on Insta, AskMax75 at CWBgroup.org if you want to hit me up there. Also, make sure that you share the Spotify or iTunes or Google podcast links out there. The more numbers we get out there, the more exposure we get, and the more guests we can get. So that's all a big happy circle of promotional activity there. And again, thank you, Joelle. I hope you have a great career, and I'll check in on you, and you feel free to check in on me anytime.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Max. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Everybody, you guys take care.
We hope you enjoyed the show.
You've been listening to the CWB Association Welding Podcast with Max Ceron. If you enjoyed what you heard today, rate our podcast and visit us at cwbassociation.org to learn more. Feel free to contact us if you have any questions or suggestions on what you'd like to learn about in the future. Produced by the CWB Group and presented by Max Ceron. This podcast serves to educate and connect the welding community. Please subscribe, and thank you for listening.